from the Mets breaking the record for the most expensive MLB team sale, to the Broncos being the biggest franchise sale of all time. These are some of the most significant sports franchise sales ever made, starting with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Back in 2012, the Dodgers were sold by Frank McCourt for a whopping $2 billion. That's right, $2 billion. The sale was finalized on March 27, 2012, and the new owners were a group called Guggenheim Baseball Management, which included former NBA star Magic Johnson. For a while, this sale held the record for the most expensive sports franchise sale in history, until 2017, when several other franchises started to pass it up. So since the Dodgers' initial sale in 2012, a few other franchises have been sold for even more money, but they'll always hold a special place in history as the team that set the standard for expensive sports franchise sales. But how dare the MLB be the only one getting the spotlight, right? Just 2 years later, the Los Angeles Clippers joined the club. In April 2014, then-owner Donald Sterling came under fire for making racist comments. The team responded by banning him from the NBA and fining him $2.5 million. This prompted Sterling to put the team up for sale. In May 2014, former Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer made a record-breaking bid of $2 billion to purchase the Clippers. This was the largest sale of an NBA team in history at the time, doubling the previous record of $550 million for the Milwaukee Bucks, also equaling the amount for the most expensive sale of any sports franchise. The sale was not without controversy, however. Sterling's wife, Shelley Sterling, had attempted to sell the team without his approval, leading to a legal battle over who had the right to sell the team. Ultimately, the sale went through, and Steve Ballmer became the new owner of the Clippers. Since then, Ballmer has made some significant changes to the team. He invested in the Clippers' facilities, including a new training center and a proposed new arena. He also brought in new front office staff and players, and all the bells and whistles that come with it. So, $2 billion for the MLB team and $2 billion for the NBA. What's next? Well, only 3 years later, the Houston Rockets decided to raise the stakes even further. In September 2017, Leslie Alexander sold the Rockets to Houston businessman Tillman Fertitta. The total price it was sold for was a whole $200 million more than the price at which the Dodgers were sold. This brought the price tag to a massive $2.2 billion. Can you imagine having that kind of money? This sale broke the previous record for the most expensive NBA team sale, which was held by the Los Angeles Clippers. But as the fire that was started by the MLB had already been spread far and beyond, it wasn't long before this too would be broken. And that's exactly what happened a few years later. Even though the Rockets no longer hold the record for the most expensive NBA team sale, it's still an impressive feat to sell a team for $2.2 billion. The new owner, Fertitta, is a Houston native and businessman who also owns a number of restaurants and other businesses. So that's great, but of course, nothing lasts forever. And so, the Carolina Panthers also took the crown from the Rockets. Their big sale back in 2018 was huge news, especially for the time. Did you know that they're the second most expensive NFL team and the fifth most expensive North American franchise? Wild, right? Well, the team was sold for $2.275 billion to billionaire hedge fund manager David Tepper. Tepper's no stranger to big business deals. He's also the founder of the Florida-based hedge fund firm Appaloosa Management, as well as the owner of the MLS franchise Charlotte FC. Before Tepper, the Panthers had been owned by former NFL player Jerry Richardson since the team's start. But in 2017, allegations of workplace misconduct and racial slurs against Richardson caused the NFL to launch an investigation into the team. Eventually, he decided to sell the franchise. Much like all the previous teams, the Panthers too stayed around the $2.2 billion mark. But that's not going to be the case as we move forward. Alright, let's switch gears and head over to Brooklyn to talk about the Nets. Introducing to you the fourth most expensive North American franchise. That's pretty impressive, right? With that mark, they're also the first to break the 2.3 mark with a sale price of $2.35 billion. 2019, Joseph Tsai acquired full ownership of the team when he purchased the franchise for the price I just mentioned. But get this, before that, Tsai only owned 49% of the Nets under the former majority owner, Mikhail Prokhorov. It's crazy to think about the amount of money involved in these deals. Since Tsai's takeover, however, the Nets have made some major moves on and off the court. Enough about basketball for a while now. Let's switch to baseball, because what's better than talking about about the most expensive baseball team of all time. The Mets were purchased for a jaw-dropping $2.4 billion by hedge fund manager Steve Cohen, who took over ownership from Fred Wilpon. He'd owned the franchise for over 3 decades, so it was definitely a big change for the team. Now, here's something interesting. In order for Cohen to acquire the team, he actually had to get approval from then New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. This was because Citi Field, where the Mets play, is located on city property, so it wasn't just a simple business transaction. There was a bit of politics involved as well. Although it's already crazy to think about these teams selling over 2 billion tickets, the real fun begins now. Let's start with the Phoenix Suns. In 2021, Dan Gilbert's former protege, Matt Ishbia, made history by purchasing the Phoenix Suns and the WNBA's Mercury for an incredible $4 billion. That's right, it's officially the highest sale price ever for an NBA franchise, beating out the previous record set by the Brooklyn Nets in 2019. That's an increase of $1.65 billion from the last team we discussed. But how did Ishbia come to acquire these teams? Ishbia is the CEO of United Wholesale Mortgage, a Michigan-based company. Though before he was a big-time CEO, he was actually a college basketball player at Michigan State from '98 to '02. So it's safe to say he's got a real passion for the sport. With the purchase of the Suns, Ishbia has not only secured ownership of an NBA team, but also the WNBA's Phoenix Mercury. Speaking of big money, how can I forget the most expensive team of all time? Welcome to the world of the Denver Broncos. First up, let's talk about the team's owner, Brittany Walton. She made history in 2022 when she purchased the Broncos for an astonishing $4.65 billion, making it the most expensive North American franchise sale ever. The Broncos are so high up on the list, it's not even a competition. But it's not just the ownership that's making headlines. During the offseason, the Broncos made a major move by acquiring superstar quarterback Russell Wilson from the Seattle Seahawks in a blockbuster trade. Wilson is set to be the new face of the franchise, and fans are excited to see what he can bring to the team. With these major acquisitions, it's clear that the Broncos are setting their sights high for the upcoming season. Sure, $4.65 billion, that's a huge amount. In fact, anything over $1 billion is. But with the way things are going, who knows if the current top 10 most expensive teams will even be relevant in a decade. But $4.65 billion? That's just too crazy to even think about. So there you have it, the biggest sales of sports franchises of all time.
Now pulls one over the bag. Goldsmith with a sprawling stop. The race to the bag.
And so I actually felt they may be like I may never get another opportunity to own a team that I would want to own. And lucky enough, the Mets, came up for sale, and so now I get the opportunity to put my imprint on a team.